Welcome to the Strength for the Day podcast, which is a daily Bible study with Dennis Fountain. We hope this time together will be challenging, sharpening, uplifting, encouraging, and strengthening to your Christian walk. Thank you for joining us, and we pray you are helped through today's study.
Hey, good morning, and welcome back to Strength for the Day. We are in a study that we're almost done with entitled Journey with Jesus. Sorry, my brain went blank just for a moment. But this has been a great study, doing a chronological study of the life of Jesus Christ. And if you have been in our episodes previously, then you know that we are just in the last few days of the earthly life of Jesus before he would be crucified and then risen again from the dead. And here's what I'm going to tell you as we make our way into these last few chapters of the Gospels. Really, there is so much in the last few weeks of the life of Jesus. Actually, if you were at our church, I think it was about a month ago, I made mention of the fact that about 1/3 of the Gospels, over I think it's 29 or 30 chapters, are written about the last 8 days. So if that tells you something about the importance of it, that the gospel writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that they all saw the significance of this last week of Jesus, and they wrote so much about it. So I tell you all of that to say this: as we dive into this study and as we really make our way through this, we're going to get to the week of Passion, or that Easter week leading up to Easter, Resurrection Sunday. And that week, we're actually going to take a break from our series, even though we'll be very close to the crucifixion. We're going to take a break from the series, and we're going to walk through Monday through Friday, walk through that crucifixion week and what took place. And then the week following, we'll jump back in and kind of do a deep dive, especially in like John 13 through 17, and even toward the end, John 19 through 21, or 18 through 21. Just there's so much there, so we can't cover it all in just a few episodes. So anyway, let's jump into today's study. We are in the Gospel of Mark and chapter number 11. We left off in our previous episode where Jesus was entering into Jerusalem on that Palm Sunday, and we saw all of that take place. As Jesus enters into Jerusalem, the Word of God says this, that the next day when they had come out from Bethany, he was hungry, and seeing from afar a fig tree having leaves, he went to see if perhaps he would find something on it. When he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it was not the season for figs. In response, Jesus said to it, "Let no one eat fruit from you ever again." And his disciples heard it. So they came to Jerusalem. Then Jesus went into the temple and began to drive out those who bought and sold in the temple, and overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves. And he would not allow anyone to carry wares through the temple, or product through the temple. The idea, we'll get to all of it. Then he taught, saying to them, "Is it not written, 'My house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations'? But you have made it a den of thieves." And the scribes and the chief priests heard it, and sought how they might destroy him, for they feared the people, because all the people were astonished at his teaching. And when evening had come, he went out of the city. So here in these two quick stories, the first, Jesus coming into Jerusalem on a day, of course, there's a lot here. So he's coming into Jerusalem. He sees a fig tree not producing figs. And so Jesus says, from here on out, no one's going to eat a fig ever again. Remember that story, because we're going to come back to it here in just a minute. But as Jesus goes into the temple, he cleanses the temple. Now, there is a lot of speculation that people try to cast at this situation and say that Jesus lost his temper and that Jesus was hitting people and all of that. No, the idea is that Jesus, as the Messiah, came in with a righteous zeal for God. And when he cast people out, it was Jesus coming to the people and saying to those that are making trade within the temple, the idea would be that Of course, you would come and sacrifice during the time of Passover. You would bring a sacrifice to the Temple Mount. There's a lot to this, but we're not going to dive into all of it. Anybody would come and they would want to sacrifice. If you live near, then you would come and you would bring your own animal. But if you live far away, you would come and hope to purchase an animal that you could sacrifice. And so when you would come to that Temple Mount, and there would be money changers, people that you could exchange money with, because you had to have the coin of the temple or the coin of the area that you could transfer and pay for things for. And then you would want to go buy an animal for sacrifice. Well, unfortunately, there were money gougers and businessmen that were trying to make money on all of this. And so they would come in and they would say, well, yeah, the lamb cost today, it unfortunately went up. It's $150. You know what? That's preposterous. And man, they just drove the prices up, and then they would split that money. They were making it into a time of gain, personal gain. And then for those that brought their own animal, oftentimes scholars and historians write that oftentimes they would bring that animal in and someone would be like, well, that animal is not fit to be sacrificed. You have to buy one of these animals, and then charge them that $150 or whatever the case may be. And then they would take the unfit animal in the back, and a few hours later they would bring it back out and sell it as a fit animal. So Jesus knew of the corruption that was taking place, and he knew that the religious elite and those that were trying to make gain during this time, they were completely out of line and had lost touch with the purpose of God's house. He said, my Father's house is to be a house of prayer for all. The idea there is God's house is to lead to relationship with God, not to lead to personal gain. And so Jesus comes and drives those people out and says, you have missed the point of my house. Then in verse number 20, it says, now in the morning they passed by and saw the fig tree dried up from the roots. And Peter, remembering, said to Jesus, Rabbi, look, the fig tree which you cursed has withered away. So Jesus answered and said to them, have faith in God, for assuredly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be removed and be cast into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that those things he says will be done, he will have whatever he says. Therefore, I say to you, whatever things you ask when you pray, believe that you will receive them and you will have them. And whenever you stand praying, if you have anything against anyone, forgive him, that your Father in heaven may also give you your trespass. But if you do not forgive, neither will your Father in heaven forgive your trespasses. Now, there's a lot of thoughts about what this fig tree and all of that is. But a lot of times a fig tree was representative of Israel. And so some Bible scholars believe that when Jesus was cursing the fig tree, it was almost prophetic in the sense that Israel's about to deny him as Messiah. But then what Jesus does is he uses the opportunity to teach the apostles on prayer and on faith. It's almost like Peter said, wow, look, Lord, your prayer was answered. And Jesus says, hey, listen, you guys have the ability to pray and talk with God and allow that prayer to be answered through faith. Have faith, believing that God can answer. But I want you to notice this last part, and this is where we'll close. Verse 27, they came to Jerusalem, and it was as he was walking in the temple, the chief priests and scribes and elders came to him, and they said to him, by what authority are you doing these things? And who gave you this authority to do these things? And Jesus answered and said to them, I will also ask you one question, then answer me, and I will tell you by what authority I do these things. The baptism of John, was it from heaven or from men? Answer me. So, two questions. The first question toward Jesus. Jesus, what gives you the authority to cast out the money changers and to do the things that you do? I mean, who gives you the right? Even though Jesus had already performed miracles, he had already raised the dead, of course, raising Lazarus from the dead. Jesus, they knew that Jesus was the Messiah. You could go to John chapter number 3, and Nicodemus said to Jesus, we know that you are sent from God. And so they knew it, but they were just trying to find another way to accuse him and to hurt him and ultimately kill him, which they will find, and we'll see that in a few days. But then Jesus says, okay, I'll answer your question if you answer mine. And then his question, the baptism of John the Baptist or the baptism of John, was it from heaven or from men? Hey, do you believe John was sent by men or John was sent by God? Answer me that, and then I'll answer your question. And they reason among themselves, saying, if we say from heaven, he will say, why then did you not believe him? But if we say from men, they feared the people, for all people counted John to have been a prophet indeed. So they answered and said to Jesus, we do not know. And Jesus answered and said to them, neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things. They were just wanting Jesus to boldly say to them, I am the Messiah. That's what they were trying to demand time and time and time again. Even though Jesus proved it, he did speak those words to them, although he didn't phrase it the way that they wanted him to. And yet they didn't answer his question of, was John sent from God or not? And so Jesus tells them, I'm not going to answer your question. He wasn't being sarcastic. He was actually being very wise. In this moment, had he claimed to be Messiah, they could have taken him right then. And Jesus knew that. He knew that the crucifixion was right around the corner, that he would be sacrificed for the sins of the world. And so there's just a lot that happened on this day leading up to the week of crucifixion. But the question I have for us, and I just looked at the time, we are almost out of time. Stay with me one more minute. We'll knock this out. The question I have for us today is, sometimes I find that we can be in the place of the Pharisee, and we can say to God, God, what gives you the right to, and fill in the blank? Here's my question. Do you ever find yourself truly questioning the authority of God? God, why did you allow this situation? God, what gives you the right to do that? My friend, can I encourage you with what Jesus encouraged his followers about the fig tree when he encouraged them about faith? Their encouragement was about faith in prayer. I want to encourage you about faith in trust, being able to trust God. What circumstance or situation have you had recently in your life that has caused you to say, God, what gives you the right? God, who do you think you are? Hey, step back and say, God, I choose to trust you. God, I choose to allow you to be God and me to be Dennis. God, I choose to trust. I don't have to know everything going on, but I trust that you do. Anyway, I hope that'd be a help to you today, and I look forward to continuing our study, and have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you in our next episode. See you.